Hey guys, great to have you again. And today's training is going to be one of those where we certainly dive deep. And I'm going to give you a lot of content. And when you're going through this stuff, this isn't something that you're going to be able to say, hey, boom, I have the answer. On to the next one. This is something you're going to have to continually create and cultivate and nourish and mold and change. And I mean, you're doing this to this story, and you're probably going to continue to do it because your story has not ended, right? And so I'm going to go through a lot of stuff, and I'm probably going to go pretty quickly. And you got your notes, make sure that you follow along. And I got some questions in there, and I'm going to ask additional questions as we go through the training. But just take some notes as we go through this. And I'm going to say some things you're probably going to want to take notes on and think about it later, right? Don't try to come up with all your answers right now. Just get the broad stroke concepts and take some notes. And then after you watch the training, come up with your answers, come back to the training, watch it again, hear those things again. And I think that's how you're really, really going to benefit from, excuse me, this training. Okay. So I'm ready. Are you? Let's do this. Let me share my screen with you real quick. Here we go. Ooh. And the training is on creating your unique story. And we've talked a lot about this kind of concept in the boot camps. You even practice it. And we're really going to dive deep today. And really, this training comes from a screenwriter, a guy that teaches storytelling in terms of movies. So he's a professor. He has collaborated with Will Smith. His name is Michael Haig. And he's really one of those guys that's really sought after in terms of storytelling and how to create that and how to create the elements of a story that really make it impactful and powerful. And he says, hey, there are key ingredients. Every story has these steps, and they're going to follow this very sequentially, very much in order. And that's what I want to be able to do for myself. That's what I want you to be able to do as well. So I've got a ton of notes sitting in front of me. I've got the screens in front of you, and let's get going. So in terms of creating your story, there are several elements, and we're going to talk about throughout the day, throughout this training, we're going to talk about the hero, which is going to be you, and the two journeys that the hero goes on. So I got a whole bunch of notes right here you see on the screen, and I've got a 1, 2, 3 over on the left-hand side. I've got rapport 1 through 5, and I've got this first journey of achievement, second journey of transformation, the character, the backstory, all these things, right? And there's a whole bunch to this. So we're going to piece this together and begin to cultivate your story for you, okay? So I don't want you to focus on this and say, oh my gosh, I got to take notes on all this stuff. I got to draw this thing out. Don't worry about this right now. Come back to this later. Watch this on the second time, the second go around. Go ahead and jot this thing down, okay? Don't worry about this because we're going to go through this step by step. So the first thing is we're going to talk about the setup, the beginning of the story. And really a story's got to have a few things. It's got to have a character. It's got to have a character's desire and a conflict, okay? And the setup, specifically for a movie, we're going to use movies because they're an easy example. And I'm going to use 2 movies in particular. One of them is one of my favorite movies. One of them I think we understand, so we'll get it. So one of my favorite movies is Cinderella Man. I love that movie. I think it's great. So hopefully you've seen that. I'm going to use that as a reference today. And I'm going to use another movie, Cars, which came out in 2006-ish, something like that. I think we've all seen Cars, especially if you have kids. And I'm going to use that because, excuse me, man, we get the story. So in terms of the setup, when you watch Cars at the very beginning, they're starting to tell a story immediately, right? And I want you to be able to tell your story immediately and begin to captivate that audience right then and there. So what do they do in Cars? There's something very specific. During the setup, they introduce us to the hero. And who's the hero? Lightning McQueen, right? In Cinderella Man, it's the main character, right? James J. Braddock. And so they show that individual living their everyday life. So in Cars, you see him, he's running around the track. That's what he does. He's a race car, and that's his everyday life. He's young, he's arrogant, he's good, and he's getting a lot of attention, and he likes it. So you see those elements in the movie Cars, right? And in the setup, you can also create empathy with the character, and you also present the character with an opportunity. So specifically for the movie Cars, he's presented with an opportunity, right? There's a trophy that he can get. There's a tie between a few cars, and they say, hey, we can't have a tie. We've got to have a race off, if you will, in California in a week, right? And so what they're going to have to do is have a tiebreaker race. And so this is setting up the stage for the entire movie, right? So in terms of, if I scroll back, going back to rapport, you immediately want to create rapport with the hero. And it can be a few things. So if you look at rapport, the victim, Jeopardy, likable, funny, powerful. A victim is, they're a victim of some outside force. And Jeopardy, you immediately put them in jeopardy. And why would you put that person, that main person, in jeopardy? You begin to empathize and worry about them, right? If you have them in jeopardy in terms of a story, we immediately worry about them. Likable, so we want to be like them. Like, likes, like. And so if they're likable, we want to be like them. Funny is a great one. Funny is tough to pull off. And if you can pull it off, great. If you can't, stay away from this one in terms of telling your story and the setup. So if you're not funny, right? I don't really consider myself funny. So I wouldn't use this one in terms of a rapport builder. There's also powerful, because if they're powerful, I want to be powerful. So therefore I want to be like them. So it's kind of like likable, right? So you want to first have that rapport and have that rapport with the hero, and then you want to introduce the desire for something more, to win, to retrieve, to escape, to stop. So that's over to the right. They want something. And so for Cars, Lightning McQueen, at first journey, the achievement, he wants to win the trophy, right? And they have a name for it, doesn't matter. But he wants to win that, right? And so which achievement does he want? He wants to win, right? So he says, hey, I'm going to California. And so he has his truck. He says, hey, drive me to California. We're going. I'm going to win. So that's the obvious journey. So there are two journeys for the hero, right? So it says the hero's two journeys. The first one is the obvious. You got to give him some kind of desire. His desire is, hey, I want to win this trophy. And it's really easy. The first journey, achievement. The second journey is a little tougher for us, and that's the transformation. And we're going to talk about that as we go today. Man, my nose is itching. I'm so sorry. Scratching my nose. So the achievement is the goal or outcome that moves the story forward. Transformation, old beliefs equals identity. Essence equals new beliefs. So we're going to go through that as well. Just making sure I share all my notes with you because I took a whole bunch of notes. People don't go to the movies. When they're going to the movies, you don't go to Cars to watch Cars. You go there to experience Cars. If you go to the movies to watch Cinderella Man, you don't go to watch Cinderella Man. You go to experience Cinderella Man. You want to be connected with the movie. So when you're telling your story, you want an element of connection from you to the person. They need to be connected to you. So when you're telling your story, there needs to be an element of connection because they want to experience it with you. So how can you get them to experience emotion? And when you're just giving a resume, a chronological order of all the things that happened in your life that led you to be who you are now, and now you're in practice, nobody cares. They do care about the emotions that you went through, right? What are those emotions and those struggles and the internal conflict and how you felt about it and your desire? So there's a feeling, and your fear, there's a feeling. what were those things in each of those stages? That allows me to experience it along with you if, in fact, you're telling me the story. Now I feel like I'm at the movies. I'm engaged with you. I'm experiencing your story versus you just telling me a story. Does that make sense? So the setup is really going to be 10% of the movie. And if you clock it, watching the entire movie of Cars, and however long Cars is, and Michael Haig says, you watch a movie, the setup is going to be 10% of that movie, right? So if it's 90 minutes long, it's going to be 10% of 90 minutes. That's the setup. He says it's almost to a T. Every time, 10 minutes is going to be the setup, right? So I found that really, really interesting. He said, you watch really any movie, and 10% is going to be the setup. And they may waver just a minute or two, but it's almost a science that they have this lined out. So if you want a blockbuster hit, then they're going to say, hey, we're going to have these steps, and it's going to last this long. And we got to have these elements. And that's how they can manufacture success. I mean, they make a movie, they know they're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. Why? Because there's a science behind telling the story, and they figured it out. And Hollywood's figured it out to the tune of, hey, they make a movie, you flock to the theater, right? As a general consensus, the population. They all go to the theater and spend all their money, right? I don't like going to the movies. But most people will go to the movies and spend all their money going to watch whatever the latest movie is. I have no idea what it is right now. But they're going to spend their money. Why are they doing that? Because they want to be a part of the experience, right? They want to experience that movie, and they know if they go watch that movie, oh, it's going to be good, right? They've already built it up in their head, right? And then they come out of the theater, oh my gosh, this thing is amazing. I love it, right? So in terms of that very first stage, you want to identify the character, introduce us to the hero, right? And in terms of the hero, I wanted to read something, if I can find it. I can't, I'll find it later. In terms of that character, you want to introduce the character, introduce their desire, and introduce a conflict. So for Cars, for example, his immediate conflict is, yeah, there's a three-way tie. Hey, you race in a week. He gets on to his truck. They're going to drive all night. Well, he falls out the back, right? And now he's in this other town. And in terms of after the setup, typically the person changes geography. So now he's in a new geography. He's not racing around the track. He's in Radiator Springs, right? Some little town that nobody visits anymore, and they're in their old ways, right? So that's his new conflict. And now he's frustrated that he can't get out of the town. And the conflict right there is what's going to create emotion, not the desire, it's the conflict. So what's that immediate conflict you've gone through that's going to create emotion for me, the consumer of the story, right? So I can experience it as well. What is that conflict you're going through that's going to create the emotion within me to allow me to experience it along with you, right? So again, the setup, introduce the hero, which is you, show you living your everyday life, and create some level of rapport or empathy with the hero. And I know I'm using the word hero. It doesn't mean that you have to be heroic necessarily. It means you are presented at some point an opportunity to be heroic. Whether you take it or not is to be determined, okay? But I'm going to call the character, as we go through this, and we're talking about movies, I'm going to call the character the hero, okay? Make sure I went through all these, because there's so much to this. So let's get to a new situation. A new situation, the hero's preliminary goal is to figure out, get acclimated to the new situation. So in Cars, it's, hey, I got to get acclimated to the fact that I'm in Radiator Springs and he's in his personal hell, so to speak, right? And the new situation for the movie Cinderella Man, yeah, he's boxing, and then what happens? The Great Depression happens for Jimmy Braddock. He's now in a totally different situation. He doesn't necessarily change geography It's a totally new situation that nobody's experienced. He hasn't experienced, nobody's experienced before. So for him, hey, it's the Great Depression. And what that's going to do is even create bigger desire. And this desire is more than just figuring something out. This desire has a clear and visible endpoint. It is here and only here the hero will begin pursuing the outer motivation. And at the end, you can also add in the element of refusing the call. Sometimes the hero will refuse the call, so to speak. So what's his new situation in Cinderella Man? It's the Great Depression. Not only that, he breaks his hand, he can't fight, and he loses his boxing license, right? And in the movie Cars, what's the new situation? Trying to figure out how in the world to get out of Radiator Springs, right? So progress, what are they doing to move forward? So the third step in this is the progress. So whatever plan the hero chose to obtain the goal seems to be working. So Cars, he's torn up the town. And Doc Hudson says, you are going to fix this road. And so what does Lightning McQueen do? He says, all right, I'll fix it. I got to pull this thing. He just drags it, this road paver thing, and just drags it through the town saying, oh, yeah, hey, I'm done. This is working. Okay, I'm going to get out of this town, right? So whatever, this step right here, hey, I think whatever I'm doing is working. The next step is the point of no return. And the point of no return is, hey, I've gone so far to this other thing, this other goal, that I've passed halfway. Me turning around makes no sense, okay? It's the example of if, in fact, I were on a flight from New York to Paris, and I'm flying from New York to Paris, and I'm 60% into the flight, 60% in, and the plane is experiencing some technical difficulty. It's not necessarily urgent, but it certainly warrants attention. Is the plane going to turn around and go back to New York? No, they're already 60%. They only need 40 more percent shorter to get to Paris, right? They've already passed the point of no return, which is the halfway mark. It's better for them to just keep going and get to Paris. Does that make sense? So instead of turning around, which would be more effort and makes zero sense, why don't you just go to Paris? So the point of no return for the hero is going to do something that represents a much bigger commitment toward the goal. And at this point, the hero is burning the bridges behind him. This could be a good thing because if they're not burning those bridges, it allows them to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm just going to go ahead and turn around. They still have the choice to turn around and say, nah, I'm not doing this. At this point, they're really pushing all their chips to the center of the table and saying, all right, I'm all in. And it really goes along with the line of Tony Robbins. If you want to take the island, burn the boats. So if you're in the boat and say, hey, I want to take that island, give yourself no other option. Eliminate all other options. Burn the boat, right? That's the point of no return. I have to take the island at that point, right? So at one point, there's going to be a point of no return, right? So for Cinderella Man, his trainer comes back and gives him an opportunity to fight again. And so he hands him some money. It was a last minute deal. Hey, they needed somebody. It was a last minute deal, and gets him to fight, right? Let me back up. He gets him to fight. And so he, within a day, fights this guy, and he wins. And they're thinking, oh my gosh, Jimmy, you weren't supposed to win. This is amazing. And so his trainer goes to the head guy of the boxing commission and says, hey, let's keep Jimmy in. This is going to make us more money. So he convinces him, gives Jimmy his license back. He goes to Jimmy and says, hey, I've got money for you. I want you to stay into boxing, right? And this is the point of no return. Now he has to stay. It was supposed to be a one-fight deal, right? If you remember the movie, it's supposed to be a one-fight deal because they picked him at the last minute. Somebody got cut. And so he fights, he wins. And now the boxing commission has said, hey, yeah, we'll give him his license back because this is going to make us more money. So his trainer says, hey, you're not going to work on the docks anymore. you're fighting, you're training. And so this is the point of no return. And his wife is a little upset because she says, hey, I've always worried about you getting hurt. And when you broke your hand, hey, we kind of got away safe in this moment because you didn't break your head open, you didn't die, you didn't, whatever the case may be, right? We got away safe and you got to do your thing. And yeah, we made some money, fine, but you're here, you're safe. And now he's getting back into it. And now her level of anxiety and fear is doing what? It's going through the roof. However, he's already accepted the money. So at this point, he's at the point of no return, right? Now he's got to struggle with even his family, his wife, his spouse, because he has crossed the point of no return. So what is your point of no return for you? When did you cross and say, hey, I'm pushing all the chips to the center of the table. I'm all in. I've had some progress. Now I'm past the point of no return. I'm in it to win it. The stakes are bigger, and I'm going to do this thing, right? What was that for you? Let's get to the next one, complications and higher stakes. At this point, something happens that is awful, terrible in this moment in a movie, and it seems that all is lost to the viewer. And when this happens, the hero will try to go back to the way it was before, right? And in this moment, it says it becomes more difficult to achieve the goal, becomes more important to achieve the goal. I'm sorry, I mixed those two together. Complications and higher stakes, it becomes more important to achieve the goal and difficult. And the major setback after that, hey, something awful, horrible, it seems all is lost. Oh my gosh, the hero is going to try to go back, but he can't because he's burned the bridges. He burned the boats. He's flown over halfway to Paris, right? So he's got to push. He's got to go all in. This is a whatever it takes kind of moment, right? In terms of Cinderella Man, it's the major setback. At this point, he has to be all in. He's already crossed the point of no return. He want to fight. He want to fight. He want to fight. Now he's fighting the top guy who's already killed 2 men in the ring, Max Baer, and his wife is flipping out because she goes to a media conference and they're interviewing Jimmy, and one of the media guys stands up and asks the question to the wife, hey, did you know that this guy that's going to fight your husband has already killed 2 men in the ring? And she didn't know, and you just see she's floored in the moment. So the major setback in that movie is her having his back. She's completely lost all faith. Oh my gosh, he's going to kill you. How can I support you fighting in this fight? You're going to fight the top guy for the heavyweight championship. How can I support it when he's killed 2 men? I'm afraid of losing you, right? So his setback is support of his wife, his spouse. So the climax, at this point, the hero achieves the goal or not. It's got to be very, very clear. It cannot be ambiguous. And in Cars, if we go to Cars, the climax of the movie, so they're racing around, and he's racing in the race, so it's a 3-way tie, right? And he's racing in the race, and what's the guy's Chick runs the king off the road, and the king just flipping, and he's one of the all-time greats, right? And so the king's racing Chick, and then Lightning McQueen. And so the king is run off the road by Chick, and Lightning McQueen is winning the race. All he had to do was cross the finish line. And he doesn't. He stops right before the finish line. He backs up and go gets the king and pushes him across the finish line. Now, who wins? Chick. And he's cheering and he's all excited because he wins. And Lightning McQueen does not win. So he's the hero, but he doesn't win. So the external desire is winning that trophy. The internal change is transformation. And so what's his transformation? He goes from this young, cocky, egotistical car to, hey, I need to take care of others, right? And he learns that in Radiator Springs. He changed geography, and he learns that. He becomes friends with Mater. That's his best buddy. And he learns, hey, I need to take care of others, right? And so he's serving others. He's contributing to others. So what happens when the king starts flipping during Lightning McQueen's last lap. Lightning McQueen stops, he backs up, goes and gets the king and pushes him across the finish line. So the bigger thing is they're cheering for him because of his transformation, not his external desire of achievement, but it was that internal journey of transformation. He's a different car, right? Which is great. And so everybody cheers for him. And so then you get to the aftermath. The aftermath is the new life that the hero is living. And if you go to Cinderella Man, it's pretty brief in the movie. It tells some things that happen in the afterlife. Hey, they buy a house that they live in the rest of their life. And he contributes in different ways. He helps build a bridge and all this stuff. But it talks about what life is like after beating Max Baer, because he wins. Right? They go through all the rounds, and it was unanimous decision. Jimmy Braddock defeats him, and so just shocking around the world that James J. Braddock wins this fight. So hence Cinderella Man, he wins. So it's that Cinderella story, and it shows the life afterwards. And another thing that stories will do is describe the new life and compare it to the old. Is it like the old? No way. He'll never go back to working on the docks, so to speak, right? He'll never go back to the old way of living or the old way of thinking, and neither will his wife, right? It's the idea, hey, we can achieve anything we put our mind to, those kinds of things. So that's the aftermath of their story. So let's review this a little bit. So the backstory, the desires, there's an external and internal external and internal desire that the person has, and they're certainly going to talk about the external desire. They're not necessarily going to be talking about the internal desire, right? They're going to have an idea. There's going to be a wall. There's a conflict, and they're going to go on a journey. They're going to change geography, go on a journey. They're going to be presented with a new opportunity. So Jimmy Braddock, a new opportunity. Hey, you get to fight again. You lost your license, you get to fight again. And his epiphany is, hey, if I get to fight again, my kids don't have to live on the street. So what's the plan? Hey, let's just start fighting. Fight, 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 fight. Win, 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 win. What's the conflict for him? Hey, you're going to have to fight the toughest guy in the world that's already killed 2 men in the ring. So that's the conflict. He's either going to win or lose. So the external desire, very clear. Hey, I want to win the fight. And he achieves that. And he also goes through transformation, not just with him, but his family, his spouse. And for Cars, he's presented at the end the conflict. Hey, I could cross this finish line and win and achieve the external desire. But what does he do? He stops, goes and gets the king and pushes him across, and he really goes through transformation, which is phenomenal. Okay, so that's really the external type of thing. Let's go through the inner journey, right? So what does the hero long for? And longing for something, a deeply held desire that a character is just paying lip service to because he's too afraid to go after it. And a great example is how Rose viewed the boat Titanic. She longed for love and adventure, but she was too afraid to go after it. All she really had to do was tell her interfering mother and fiance, I'm done. That's all she had to do, but she didn't do it, right? She was afraid to do that. She longed for this adventure, this love, and she didn't feel like she had it. She felt like she was screaming at the top of her lungs in a crowded room and nobody could hear her, right? That's how she felt inside, but she actually wasn't speaking at all, right? So what did the hero long for? The next thing, what is your hero's wound? And a wound is going to be a painful experience in the past that they believe they've moved on from, but still determining how they behave, which really goes back to a perspective drill, right? What's that painful experience in the past that you believe you've moved on from, but it's still affecting how you behave? And beliefs from wounds are never accurate. We know this. Beliefs from wounds are never accurate. Write that one down. That one's key. And what is your hero's fear? And the fear is the belief that we develop from our wound, and it always creates fear. always creates fear. So the belief that we develop from our wound. So what is that belief that you've developed from the wound? And then you go to your identity, the false self that a character creates to protect himself from the fear that was created by the wound that happened long ago. So the false self, that veil that we're putting over ourselves to as a protective mechanism. What are we putting around ourselves to protect ourselves? And then you jump into the essence of that person, which I'm going to go through right now. And the essence is really going to be the persona, the truth of the individual, not their identity. Their essence is really getting down to the core of the spirit and that real persona, the truth of that being, that spiritual being, right? So to figure out how to write your story, you say, oh my gosh, this is a whole bunch of stuff. It is a whole bunch of stuff. Here are some questions that we can ask as an outline to help us line this out. So we've gone through all that stuff. You heard that, and I've tried to smash it all in and condense it as fast as I can, because that training can really be a 3 or 4 hour training. And I want to condense it as much as possible so we can be effective with time, for sure. So here are the breakthrough questions. The backstory. Your backstory. What is your backstory that gives us a vested interest in your journey? Okay? So write that down. For your backstory, what is your backstory that gives us a vested interest in your journey? Right? So introduce us to yourself, the desire, the conflict. Right? So we're going through those big things. And so obviously the second one, your desire. What is it that you want to accomplish? What is it that you want to accomplish? So external, what is the external struggle you're dealing with? This is still under desire. External, what is the external struggle you're dealing with? And internal, what is the internal struggle you're dealing with? So in terms of desire, what do you want to accomplish, and what's the external, internal struggle you're dealing with? Okay. The wall. What is the wall or the problem that you hit within your current opportunity that started you on this new journey? What's that wall you hit? And what happened to create a new opportunity in the moment? And then you jump down to epiphany. What was the epiphany you experienced and the new opportunity that you discovered? So an epiphany, that mind-blowing, oh my gosh, I never thought of it this way. I never saw it this way. I never had that perspective. So that epiphany, that mind-blowing, the mind-breaking moment, what was that? What did that moment look like? What did it feel like, so I can experience it with you as you tell me? Plan. So after you've had that epiphany moment, the plan, what's the plan you created to achieve your desire? So now that you've gone through your epiphany, the plan, what are the action steps to take based on the epiphany? And after you created the plan, you're going to go through a conflict. What conflict do you experience along the way? You created a plan and things didn't just go perfectly. So what were those stumbling blocks you went through, and how did they feel as you go through them? So I want to experience those stumbling blocks as well with you. So tell me about them so I can experience them. And then the achievement. What was the end result that you achieved? And achievement, did you achieve the desired outcome? Did you not? And it's got to be clear. It can't be ambiguous, right? And the transformation, which is the most important piece of all of this, because talking about the external desire, great, that one's easy. I want to know about the internal transformation that you've gone through and how that feels in this new essence that you've uncovered, that veil that's been covering it. I want to experience that along with you, right? So the transformation, what's the transformation that you experience, and allow me to experience it with you. And how are you going to do that? Use emotion. Use emotion. What are the emotions you're currently going through, right? So as you go through these, obviously I ran through that. I ran through really, really fast. I use a couple movies as an example. Hopefully you understand those movies. But if you go through these questions right here, these 8 questions, and just answer these things, this is going to line out a really, really nice story. And this is exactly what movies do in the first place. They go through that setup, that 10%, and then they're just sequentially going through all these steps. And mathematically, they're creating a formula for success. So I want you to have that success as well. Answer these questions. You begin to cultivate that story. If you have questions along the way, and this is what you want one of your calls to be about, let me know. If you have, I'm going to post this in the Facebook group as well. So if you want to start working through your story and share yours as an example, and we can work through that with you, certainly go ahead and comment below and we can work on that with you. I'd certainly encourage that. But this isn't one of those things you're just going to come up with all the answers right now. Write some things down. If you got to walk away, walk away. Come back, listen to the training again. Write some things down, then walk away, right? And you're going to begin to create and mold and chip away at the things that don't matter and really cultivate that beautiful, beautiful story that others get to experience along with you. So hopefully you got something out of this. This is going to help you create your unique story, because all of our stories are different and they're all compelling and they're all beautiful. We've just got to be able to get it out of us and allow somebody else to experience it. So hopefully this sets you up with a formula for success. So I'm really excited to share this with you. I took a ton of notes, but I really wanted to condense all of it for you. So hopefully you got some things out of this. If you have any questions, certainly let me know in the Facebook group, and I'll see you on the next training.